It's time to tell you the story. What's up, y'all? I'm Shannon Brielle. You can call me Shan Shan, and welcome to Shan Shan's Shenanigans. I hope you have everything that you need to sit down and relax and listen to this story, because today I am going to tell you about my experience at a Got7 Fansign. If you're interested in like the logistics of how I actually got into this thing, I made a whole separate video about that because I know that there are other people who just want to hear the stories about the boys. So that's what this video is for. If you're interested in that other video, it's here. I'm gonna try to keep this as succinct as possible, but I do know that I'll ramble a lot, so like I just apologize ahead of time. On December 15th, 2018, I somehow was able to manage to get into a Got7 Fansign, which, you know, still to all of us, it's a mystery on how it happened. If you ask any of my friends, they will also tell you like, what? So I flew into Korea on December 15th, which was the exact same day as the Fansign, and I knew that this was gonna happen because I found out about a week earlier that I was actually going to be able to go to the Fansign. So I had been mentally preparing for this whole like day for like 6 days, so which is really not enough time to mentally prepare for this kind of thing, okay? It's just not. I landed in Korea at like noon and met up with my friend who had flown in from Japan. I actually like woke up that morning at 3:30 in the morning to catch my flight to get to Korea, so then I landed in Korea at noon, then I got on the train to Youngjae, which is where my Airbnb was, and that was like an hour away from where the airport is. I got there, checked into my Airbnb, put my makeup on and changed clothes, and then like immediately we had to get up and go to the area where the Fansign was happening. So I was meeting up with my friend who helped me get into the Fansign. Shout out to Madi, you're the real MVP as always. Because she had the receipt and she also had like the album, like an album for me to get signed by the band. So I met up with Madi around like 5:30. I was like, I need to be there early. Like I don't want to accidentally not be able to do this just because like I was late. I was an hour early basically, and Madi and I just like sat outside of the room where the Fansign was gonna be and just like talked until like maybe 15 minutes before it was supposed to start. But it was just interesting because it's like I showed up super early, but all these other girls are like walking in like right before it starts. It made me realize like a lot of the people that go to these Fansigns are people who do it all the time. I just was shook basically at this idea because I was like, dang, like I just flew in from Taiwan this morning. I'm freaking out, but y'all are just acting like this is another day like going to freaking high school or something. Like it's nothing. Like it's just another day of class. Like 15 minutes before it was supposed to start, Madi was like, okay, you should probably like go and check in. I had my passport and I had my receipt and I had my album. So I went up to like the check-in table where the staff members, JYP staff members were like hanging out. And the guy that was sitting at the table was like, yo, he didn't say yo. He was like, hi. He like took my passport and he checked it against the list of people that they had that were supposed to be there that day. And then he saw my name and he, actually I saw my name before he saw my name. And I was like, that's me. And he was like, oh yeah, cool. And then he checked me off. And then he was like, all right, now draw a number. You actually have to draw a number of which person that you're gonna be in like the line to get your album signed that day. So I drew my number and I was really happy because I was really nervous before that I would be number one, but I looked down at the list and I actually saw that somebody else was number one. So dude, I was like, oh, thank God. I drew my number and I was number 70. And I felt like super gassed up. I was like, yeah, hell yeah, I'm 70 because it's got 7. Ugh. And after I drew my number, I just was like, ah! And I headed into the auditorium. Everybody was already sitting and I was like, why did they choose those seats? Like I was looking at them like, why would they choose to sit all the way in the back, blah, blah, blah. And then like I realized that all of the seats were like numbered with what number you had that you drew. So I was like, oh, okay. Cause I was like, dang, why aren't y'all sitting in the front? But cause we all had respective seats that we had to sit at. So there's that. Once I walked in, I was just like sitting there, just taking in the aura of the space, I guess. But yeah, and just like looking around, they were just playing Got7, you know, nicely, whatever, around above, and they had like the screen projected with the Miracle music video just playing over and over and over again, because that's what they do, right? They're promoting Miracle. Everybody's like freaking talking to each other. They all like know each other because they all go to these fan signs all the time. Meanwhile, me like little American Shannon is just sitting by herself, like on Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat, just like, and everybody was just talking to each other, and then all of a sudden people were like, oh, and Youngjae just like walked out onto the stage, just like super casually, just like, hey, what's up everybody? He was just there. After that, one by one, all of them started walking out onto the stage. Then they talked to us for like a little bit. After there was like, you know, maybe that 5-minute like conversation happened, they were like, all right, let's get this thing started. And so they all like went and sat behind the tables. And then the JYP staff came up and they were like, all right, people 1 through whatever number, like please get up and line up and go get your album signed. After that point, honestly, you just sit and wait. Like that's all that you do there. Like you just sit and wait. I was number 70, so I had 69 people in front of me before I had to go, which was like honestly so nice because I was nervous because like I hadn't done this before, and it's like, you know, on top of never doing this before, also like I have to talk to Got7 today, so like I was nervous. So it was nice having 69 people in front of me because like I could see how they did it, like I could see how the event is run, and like I was able to feel how relaxed the whole thing is, and I also was able to like go to the bathroom and like make sure that I didn't look like crap and like fan my armpits so I wasn't super sweaty and stuff like that. So after a while, finally, the JYP staff came up to me and my section and they were like, all right, y'all, like you can go get your signature on your album. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna go get my signature. I probably was just like, okay. And so I like stood up and I gathered all the stuff that I had with me, which was like way too much stuff to have with me. Pause. If I could give any advice to anyone who goes to Fansign, don't bring too much stuff to have with you up there on the stage whenever they're signing your albums, because I had like 10 or 12 letters that people had written, like had given me to give to Got7, and then I also had my album, and then I also had like this dumb Lego Squirtle that I made. It took me like 3 hours to make the freaking thing, and it was super fragile and it kept falling apart. My friend had told me like beforehand, like, oh yeah, you can like give the JYP staff your letters before you go up there, so your hands aren't so full when you go up there. But then whenever I got into line, I like looked at the JYP staff and I was like, hey, what do I do with these letters? Like kind of like, hey, will you take these letters? And she just looked at me and she was like, no, give it to Got7. And I was like, well, okay, yeah, I'll just hold on to them then. Okay. And so I held my letters. I just held them like this. When I was in line, like waiting to go up on the stage, I like was, you know, doing a check to make sure I had like everything that I needed, all the letters that I was supposed to have. And then of course I left the one letter that I myself wrote to Jackson. So I was like, I had like this nervous moment of like, oh my god, am I allowed to get out of line? I don't know if I'm allowed to get out of line, but like I really don't want to like not give Jackson a letter. I realized like, oh, I have a letter for every member, and that's actually what I was checking, is to see like, do I have a letter for every member, because I'm gonna feel really bad if I only have a letter for like 4 of the members or something like that. But I had a letter for every member, but the letter for Jackson was my letter and I forgot it in my seat. So I had to like leave the line to go get it and just hope that I wasn't gonna get in trouble. And like everybody was looking at me like, what is she doing? And I was just like, oh. It's like I'm like running to the other side of the auditorium, which really isn't that big of a space, but I was just like, and I felt like I stuck. I mean, obviously I stuck out because like I was the only black person there that day, but like I felt like it, you know, you just feel like people might be watching you. You're just like, meh. So I was just like, please don't look at me as I do this right now. But like I didn't get in trouble. Again, it's such a relaxed event. Like they did not care. Like, and I had my number that said I was number 70. So I just like, you know, looked at the people again and got into number 70 again. Finally, I'm in line. Like I have all the things that I'm supposed to have, that I need to have. And it's time for me to meet Got7. The order of Got7 is actually like the order of my albums behind me, except you can't see Jackson really. There he is, he's right there. But the order was Youngjae, Youngjae, JB, Mark, Jinyoung, Bam Bam, Jackson. Honestly, the perfect order for me. I was very blessed First is Youngjae. So I had a few things that I had planned to say. I've been walking through this moment in my head for like a few days, so I was like, I was ready. I just didn't, you know, because I didn't want to get up there and not like say anything and just like waste the interaction. So I got up there. Youngjae like looked at me and he went like, yo, what's up, man? What's up, man? Hey, man. Yo, what's up, man? What's up? And I was like, yo, man, what's up? I'm like, hey, what's up, dude? Like, matching his energy, because I was honestly not expecting that to be the way that he greeted me, but whatever. But then like I think he realized that like he had called me, I think, okay, there are either two things that happened. He either realized that he called me man like a bunch of times and so he felt like he needed to apologize, or maybe he just was like, oh sorry, like I've just gone overboard with this what's up man thing. But either way, he was just like, oh so sorry, like sorry. And I was like, nah, like it's fine, like we say what's up man, like I don't expect you to be gender inclusive when you speak in English, your second language, it's cool. So if I don't say it in every single interaction that I have, all of them ask me where I was from. Because duh. Duh. Like it's the easiest way to have a conversation with me and probably one of the basic conversations that they're able to have in English. So like they all asked me where I was from. After that like tiny interaction, he's like signing my album and I was like, I like, you know, took my deep breath and I was like, okay, Shannon, you want to do this, like you should do this. So I said to him like, 한국말 연습했어요. And he was like, oh, 진짜? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, oh, come on, let's go. He was like, all right, dude, like, let's do it. Let's have it. Like, you practice Korean, let's go. Like, show me your Korean. And so, except in my speech, like, I had practiced saying, like, I'm gonna try it. So, but then I, like, got caught up in saying it. So I was like, my 해볼 거. And he was like, yeah, let's go. Like, let's just do it. Let's just, come on. You can try the Korean. And I was like, okay. Took a deep breath and I was like, okay. Rewind. 제가 처음. And he was like, uh-huh, 처음. And I was like, 사랑하는 Got7 song. And then I was like, oh, Got7 노래. And he was like, oh, 진짜? He like looked up from like signing my album and I was like, yeah. He was like, oh, thank you so much. And I was like, yeah, dude. And then I was like, 그 노래 제가 Got7 팬 만들었어요. And he was like he looked up at me again and like his eyes were like so big and bright. And like honestly, one of my most visceral like visual memories that I have from this is like Youngjae's eyes because they're like so beautiful. But he like looked like honestly touched that I had said this to him. But I was like, yeah, like honestly, Rewind is the first Got7 song that I was like, oh, like when I listened to like their albums, and I was like, oh, I really like this song. Like, I'm gonna buy this song on iTunes. I'm gonna put it on burn CD. I'm gonna blast this in my car like all the time. And I did that for like an entire summer. So I wanted him to know though that like a song that he wrote is like honestly the reason that I really started respecting Got7 as musicians. And so I think that he was like really, really, really touched that I had said that to him. And he was like, wow, so powerful. Like, that's so powerful. And I was like, oh, you know, yeah, dude, like totally. So that he kept signing my album and then I was like, oh, 그리고 sign like 너무 좋아요 or something like that. I don't know. I don't remember actually what I said. Like sign. I also like sign. And he was like, oh yeah, that's a good song. As he's like signing my album, I like looked down and realized that he has written the wrong name on the top of my, like in his signing of my album, specifically because whenever I was getting ready to go up there, I had an extra sticky note and I got, like we get these lyric books with the album or whatever, and inside of the lyric book, you know, is a picture of JB. And so I was like, oh, like inside of the one that I got is a picture of JB. And so I was like, oh, I should try to get this signed for my friend Alyssa, who's like a JB stan, and her birthday's coming up. So I was like, let me try to get this signed for her. But then like on my way up, the staff saw that I was trying to do that and they're like, oh, sorry, like you can't. And I was like, oh, sorry, okay, like I didn't know, I just wanted to try. And they were like, yeah, it's cool. We didn't have this conversation in English, but yeah, so I had like put it in the back of my album though, and like somehow the sticky note was still sticking out of the bottom of the album. And so, cause like on the sticky note, you're supposed to write like their name, like this one says like JB, I don't know if it'll focus, but this one says like JB and then it says Shannon, cause like it's their name, so they know like which page to flip to, and then your name so they know which name to write on your album. So unfortunately, I had that sticky note like underneath the album, and so Youngjae saw it and thought that my name was Alyssa. My name is Shannon. And so I looked down and saw that he was signing my album, and he had written to Alyssa. And I was like, Alyssa? And he was like, and he like pointed at the sticky note and he was like, but Alyssa? And I was like, no, I'm Shannon. And I like pointed at the sticky note and he was like, oh no, I'm so sorry. And so he like crossed out Alyssa and then gave me a bunch of hearts and then wrote like all this stuff, like the Youngjae stuff, his signature. And he wrote the date, which was really nice also, so. But yeah, so that happened. Next was Youngjae. After I spoke to Youngjae, I felt like I had like just I'd used up a lot of Korean at that point, but I still was trying with Youngjae. He was like, do you live here? And I was like, no. I know I said like 오늘 아침, like I flew here, but I don't know what he thought I was saying, but we both just had like the biggest miscommunication ever of like, cause he was like, your family? And I was like, what? I really don't know what either of us were thinking whenever we were talking to each other. We both were very confused the entire conversation. I definitely said like 오늘 아침, and then I was like, he was like, oh, and I was like, 왔어요, like I came here this morning. And then he was like, oh, and I was like, oh, and then he was just like, oh, thank you so much for coming. And like he had said thank you so much earlier in the conversation, and just like, he's so cute. he said it and he's like signing my album and he just would stop and just look up and smile at me. And he was just like, thank you so much. And I was like, yeah, thank you. And he just like keep signing or whatever. And then he just like looked up at me again and just smiled. And I was like, yeah. And he like took both of my hands like this. And so we're like interlocking fingers like this. And then he just smiled at me. And I was like, you know, like smiling too, just like, yeah, of course. And then he just kept going. And it like surpassed the amount of time that it's supposed to take. You know, like when you look at somebody in their eyes, like there is a limit that we all have of looking people in their eyes, right? But like he kept that eye contact for like a very long time. I'm not sure why. Part of me thinks that he just was trying to make me break mentally. I honestly wonder if that's a game that he plays with fans, if he's just like, I'm gonna hold eye contact until they break the eye contact because I'm not gonna break the eye contact because like I'm gonna win this staring contest and make them poop their pants. And it worked. It freaking worked on me. When it was happening, like I wanted, you know, I just wanted to be able to say so many things to him. Like I had practiced, honestly, I'd practiced things to say to him. I wanted to say all these different things to him though while he was like staring at me, like holding my hands and like just freaking staring at me. But the only thing that I managed to say was just like, 너무 사랑해요. And immediately he laughed, actually probably very similar to the way that I just laughed. He like let out his freaking bird laugh, and then like we broke contact with our fingers. We let go hands, and I was like, okay, bye. After that, like I started to walk away, and this girl who was like near me in line like hands me one of the fan letters that I had been holding, and I was like, oh, thank you. And then I like looked down on the floor and like all of the letters that I had been holding were just all over the floor because like I freaked out so much while I was talking to him that I just dropped everything apparently. And so I like looked down and I was like, oh, I dropped everything. And Youngjae looks up and he goes, yeah. So next is JB, which was like honestly probably one of the like more chill interactions that I had. At this point, like I had gotten it together kind of, because for Youngjae and Youngjae, like since I clearly had like noob written on my freaking forehead, but like I would keep forgetting to give them the album to sign, and I also would keep forgetting to give them the letters, and I actually forgot to give Youngjae his letter until I was already talking to Youngjae. And then I was like, oh, right, this is yours. And then I forgot to give Youngjae his letter that was still in my hand. So then I feel bad because Youngjae probably thinks that I just decided not to give him a letter. Oh well, I gave it to the staff at the end, but still. So by the time I got to JB, like I kind of like had my act together like a little bit more. I was less nervous and like I had done it twice. So honestly, I didn't try to speak Korean to JB at all because I was just like, I'm tired, and that conversation with Youngjae just went like everywhere that it wasn't supposed to go. I don't know what happened. So I'm just gonna speak English to you and we're just gonna have a very short conversation, sir. I give him like a bunch of letters. I like put them like right in front of him, and because so many people had written letters for him, he literally looked at all of them and he went like, wow. And I was like, yeah, a lot of people like you, man. I'm pretty sure I actually forgot to give him the album and he had to be like, and I was like, oh, right. And so he took it and he's like, oh, where are you from? And I'm like, oh, I'm from Texas, like USA. So he like looked at my name though, and for whatever reason, I don't know what it was this day, for whatever reason, none of them knew the name Shannon. So like Youngjae like wrote Alyssa instead of Shannon. Youngjae, I think just like had, it just took him a second. But JB like looked at my name and goes like, Shannon? And I was like, Shannon, like Shannon, there's two N's, yeah, Shannon. And he's like, oh, Shannon. And I was like, yes. After that, I was just like, oh, I at least want to tell him that Come On is like my jam right now. So I was like, Come On. And he was like, huh? And I was like, Amboya. And he was like, oh yeah, your favorite. And I was like, yes, it's so good. And he was like, oh, thank you, thank you. And then he just handed me my album back and he was like, see you next time. And I was like, yeah, see you next time, bye. And like, that was it. It was super chill. It was fine. So next was Mark. So I was very happy that Mark was in the middle because he was the person that I prepared for the least, because like I know how to have a freaking conversation with just like a stranger. Like I'm a very charismatic person naturally. I was not worried about talking to Mark because I assumed that any conversation we had would just be like, oh, where are you from? Like, oh, like, why are you here? What are you doing? You know, that kind of thing. But I was just like, I'm just gonna relax. Like, I'm just gonna take it easy. Mark and I are just gonna have a normal person-to-person conversation, I thought. So when I got to Mark, like he looked at me and then he just smiled and he was like, hey, how's it going? And I was like, oh, good. Like, how are you? And he's like, oh, I'm good. Then he was like, so where are you from? Oh, Texas originally, but like I flew in from Taiwan this morning. And he's like, oh, Taiwan? Like, why are you in Taiwan? And I was like, oh, well, my brother lives there. He's lived there for like 10 years. But he was like, so is he a student or like, does he teach? And I was like, yeah, he teaches English and he has like a family there. He's been there for like a really long time. And he was like, oh, that's cool. And then he's like, oh, so why are you in Korea? And then he's like, did you come for this? And I immediately was like, did the same thing that I do with like any man ever who tries to make any of my actions about him. Which is, I was like, no, I did not come to Korea just for this, Mark. Who has money for that? First of all, like, and what, so you think I have money? Is that what I look like? Is I look like I have the money to just book a flight to Korea a week in advance? Like, no, I do not. And he's like, oh, so you're just like vacationing? And I was like, yeah. He looked at me and he was like, oh, so you've been drinking yet? In retrospect, I feel like that question is like, oh wow, like an idol asked me if I had been drinking. Yeah, you know, like it's kind of like, oh yeah, we were just talking. We were just freaking talking. But yeah, he's like, oh, so you've been drinking yet? And I was like, at this point, had gotten extremely comfortable talking to him. And I was like, not yet, dude. But I did say to my friend earlier that the only things I want to do in Korea are eat, drink, and then like, in that moment, I was like, oh, Shannon, you're too comfortable now. Because I was like, the next thing that you're gonna say is inappropriate. And so like, I paused and I was just like, eat, drinking. And it's like, I'm pausing and I like look up. I like look at Mark and I like look up at the staff members that are walking behind him. And I like read, like, I process in my head, like, what you're gonna say is like kind of inappropriate. And you're just gonna say this to Mark. And you know what? You've already got it halfway out your mouth, so you might as well just do it. And so I look at him and I'm like, and the end of that sentence is, get nasty. The whole time he has just been like citing my album and he's just like looking up at me and just like, with this look on his face that's like, what you gonna say? Like, what are you gonna say? I know it's inappropriate because you just paused and you looked at the staff behind me, like, what are you gonna say? And so whatever I say, like, and get nasty, he just like quietly giggles. Continues to talk to me and he's like, oh, cool, so like, when are you leaving? And I was like, oh, I leave on Tuesday. He was like, we leave Monday? And I was like, yeah, I know, like, y'all have concerts in Japan, and I was like really hoping that like you'd be doing something while I was here. And he's like, yeah. And he's like, cool, so, you know, maybe see you next year. And I was like, oh yeah, see you next year. If you have watched my video of my like Eyes on You in LA high touch experience, you know that like looking into Jinyoung's eyes is like one of the most intimidating experiences that I've ever had. But freaking Jinyoung at this fan sign was like the nicest guy ever. Like, would love to just talk to Jinyoung for an extensive amount of time, because honestly, like the way that he received me was just so welcoming. All of them were very friendly and all of them were, you know, very nice. I mean, it's their job to be nice to you at this thing, frankly. Like, you've paid money to see them. They are there to sign your albums and smile at you. Like, it's what they're supposed to do there. And I'm not saying that they're like, that it's like all a facade and they're fake and like blah, 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 blah. It's just like, they're all gonna be nice to you because they have to be. But like, I don't know, there's just something like about the way that Jinyoung like looked at me and spoke to me. Like, the only way that I could describe it is that he was just like very excited to talk to somebody, like to an international fan. Like, I feel like he was like very appreciative and excited that I was there. And so, just like, again, like, you know, Youngjae clearly said these things. Like, they all clearly said like, thank you for coming today, like, whatever. But like, it just felt so real. Coming from Jinyoung. Like, it just is what it is. Our conversation wasn't very long. Like, he was just like, and again, because like I was tired of using Korean that day, like I just didn't given up. But he said like, oh, where are you from? And I was like, oh, I'm from Texas. And he's like, oh, Texas. And in that moment, he like looked over at Mark and he hit Mark, and Mark like looks over and he's like, you know what? And Jinyoung's like, oh, Texas. And Mark and I both like looked at each other and we were like,
what is your point?
Like, kind of like, what is he getting at? I'm like looking at Mark like, why is he? And Mark is like looking at me like, I don't know, dude. And he looks at Jinyoung and he's like, they're different. And so, but I think that Jinyoung in that moment was like, you're both from America. And we were like, they're very different states, Jinyoung, but thank you for that. Also, Mark was probably like, yeah, I literally just talked to her like 30 seconds ago. He signed my album and he like is writing my name down, and I look and see that he spelled it with an E, and I'm like, oh, it's an O, like it's S-H-A and an O-N, and he's like, oh, and he like looks at the sticky note that I wrote and he's like, but this looks like E. He's like, oh, so sorry. And I was like, no, it's fine. I have bad handwriting. It's fine. I have bad handwriting. So he took his marker and in order to like correct the fact that he had written an E instead of an O, he like just drew, just like colored in the entire thing to make it an O. So that is it. Next was Bam Bam. Double B, Bam. Bam Bam's next, and he looks at me and he's like, Shannon. And I was like, what? In my head, immediately I was like, oh my god, has he like seen my YouTube videos? Oh my god, does he know? And then he was like, I heard it. Like, I heard your name 2 seconds ago. You just talked to Jinyoung right next to me. And I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot more sense. After that, he takes my album and he starts to sign it. And he's like, he sees like Shannon written down and he's like, oh, like the K-pop singer. And I was like, yeah, like the K-pop singer. And he's like, cool, so where are you from? And I was like, oh, I'm from Texas. And I was like, Bam Bam, do you know the word y'all? He's like, y'all? And I was like, yeah, y'all. And I was like, it means like you all. And he's like, you all, y'all? Yeah, I know that. And I was like, Bam Bam, the next time you come to Texas, you have to say y'all. Like, you have to say it. And he was like, what? Why? And I was like, it's like a Texas word. Like, we love it. Like, people make fun of us for saying it all the time. And he was like, oh no, but then people will make fun of me. And I was like, no, like, I promise you, like, they will not make fun of you for saying it. But if you say it on stage, like, the crowd will go wild. And he was like, really? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, okay, so like, I love y'all. And I was like, yes, exactly like that. Do it exactly like that. And he was like, okay. And then he was like, sorry, my voice is so bad. You know, we had Mama last night. I just went too hard. And I had jokingly had been like, oh, how dare you? You know your voice. But I was like, dude, it's totally chill. And I was like, though, you did look really good last night, though. Like, you look good, Bam. He's like signing my album and he like looks up at me and he's like, oh, you like that? And I was like, yeah. I was like, damn, Bam Bam. So after he signs my album, he's like, cool, so hopefully see you next time. He's like, Texas, right? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, Dallas? And I was like, yeah, Dallas, like Dallas is in Texas, like good memory, but they haven't been to Dallas in a really long time. But as soon as he says Dallas, Jinyoung from like over here is like, Dallas? I was like, yeah, Dallas. And they're like, yeah, maybe, Bam's like, yeah, maybe next time we'll do Dallas. And Jinyoung's like, ah, yes, next time, Dallas. And I was like, if y'all are lying to me, like, do not lie to me, please. If you come back, you have to play Dallas. I literally like was so like, I honestly, I got so comfortable with them because like they make it really easy for you to feel like you're their friend. And so like in that moment, I like hit the table. I was like, yes, Dallas, anywhere but Houston. And they were like, okay. And I was like, I literally was like, I'm holding y'all to it. Like, come on, do not lie to me. So Bam signed my album. And what's funny about the fact that he signed my album, I mean, like, duh, he signed my album, but like, what's funny is that like you give them sticky notes because you want them to sign specific pages, Bam Bam, if you're watching this, because I know sometimes you troll the internet, so you might be watching this. I clearly put the sticky note on this page. Clearly, I wanted him to sign around the border because I think it would be pretty. Like, Mark, you see this? You see? It's like kind of nice. It's on the borders. It's cool. Bam Bam completely ignored my sticky note, picked whatever page he wanted to sign, and he just signed it. He gave me 8 hearts. It's very nice of him, but he did not follow instructions. I just think it's funny. So after that, I like left the line, and then I got in line to talk to Jackson. And let me just say, the singular reason that this entire signing took as long as it did is because Jackson was taking so long with every single person that he was talking to. So freaking long. There were like 6 or 7 people ahead of me in this line to talk to Jackson. Like, for everybody else is like 2 or 3. Like, it's just like a quick, like, whatever. You know, there's a few people in line, blah, blah, blah. But for Jackson, like, I'm in the back of a whole line waiting to talk to him. Now it's just Jackson. Now I have to talk to my bias, like, okay, let's do this. It's my turn, and like right before my turn, like he has some kind of like mishap where he loses his pen, and actually like roll footage. You can see me in this clip in which I walk in front of him, and this clip went around Twitter for a while of him talking to a fan when he lost his pen, and there I am with the frickin' Squirtle. So I wait to talk to him. Finally, it's my turn. I say this to warn English-speaking fans specifically, that like when Jackson speaks English, like his entire persona just changes. Like it just freaking changes, and there is no explanation for it because I don't think it's because like he hates me. I don't think it's because like he hates international fans, because if he hated international fans, the man's a professional. Like he would be faking it so well. Like it's nothing like that. Like his persona just changes, which means that like my interaction with him was interesting. Finally I've like given away most of the letters because fucking JB had most of them anyways. But I've given away the letters. I'm like holding my album. I give him my album, and then he's like pointing, and I'm like, what, dude? Because that's not actually what I said, but I very clearly am just like tired. And like I have to talk to Jackson. But I hand him the album. And he like points, and I'm like, oh right, I have this freaking Squirtle in my hand that's head multiple times that I've been in this line has like fallen off. So like he's like, is that for me? And I was like, oh yeah, this. And when I hand it to him, he's like, oh, Squirtle. Like, when he speaks English, his tone is so dry at some points that I was just like immediately the way he said it, I was like, damn, I hate the Squirtle too. Honestly, dude, like if you hate the Squirtle, it's okay, because I hate it too. I just want to crush it. It's the most annoying thing ever. But he took it, and he's like looking at it, and he's like, oh wow. And he's like, you know, evaluating the thing, and I was like, yeah, it's Squirtle. And also on the thing, there's like a little tiny dog too. So I was like, yeah, and then like there's a dog next to it too, so like the dog can be Jinyoung. It can be like you and Jinyoung together. I had like prepared to say that, right? And I don't know what I expected him to say, but it was not what he said, which was, oh, Jinyoung? Can I kill Jinyoung? I really want to like kill Jinyoung. I was like, I mean, I guess if you want to, you can kill, what? I was so confused, like why? Are y'all fighting? Dang, dude, like, I don't know, like, honestly, if you want to, I guess, you have access to him. Please don't, though. He's very nice. He was really nice to me like 2 seconds ago. I don't know what's happening. Also, let me just say that when I gave him the thing, the Squirtle stayed alive. But when I pointed at the dog to say, this is Jinyoung, the dog's face just fell off. So like now he's like, oh, I want to kill Jinyoung. Like I really just want to kill Jinyoung. Meanwhile, I'm like, oh, well, okay, I just want to fix this thing. Okay, and now other parts of it are just falling apart. And I was just like, you know what? Just take it from me, please. Just, I don't want to see this ever again, please. But now he's like asking questions about it, and he sees like the bottom of it is like blue, and he's like, oh, what is this? Is this like the ocean? And I'm like, I don't know what it is. Why are you asking me questions about this Lego thing? I hate it so much. Please take it away from me. Please. Please. I honestly did not scream at him like that, but my internal voice was really just like, I was losing it. I was losing my mind. And so then he starts signing my album. And I'm just like so happy that we're over with the like Lego thing, whatever that was. And I'm like, okay, but I am prepared to also tell him this. So I'm like, it's like signing my album this entire time. So I'm like, the other day I was in Taiwan, yeah, and I was like shopping, and suddenly over the loudspeaker I heard like a bottle is my chance, and he like looks up at me, and he's like at this point he's like looking up at me. I think in his eyes he was amused by my impression of his voice, but perhaps not. But so I'm still telling my story because the way that he's looking at me the entire time I'm talking to him is like when you are listening to somebody but you are also like trying to either concentrate really hard on what they're saying or also like processing something else. And I am not sure if he was just focusing on what I was saying because I suddenly was speaking English and like other people had not been that day, or what, because he's just looking at me like, yeah, sure. Like I've got no like energy to like bounce off of, like nothing. Like I'm just telling this story. So I'm like, the other day I was in Taiwan, and over the loudspeaker I hear a bottle is my chance, and for a second I was like, oh, am I going crazy? Cause you know, sometimes I just sing that like at the beginning of songs just cause like at the beginning of every song cause I just want it to sound sure. Yeah, so, but after that I heard your voice. And he's like, really? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, what song was playing? And I was like, it's that one that you sang on Sound of My Dream, that like, da 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 da. And he's like, oh, they were playing that in Taiwan? And I was like, yeah. And then I was like, yeah. So after that, I freaked out and everybody was like, you know, why are you freaking out so much? And he's like, sure. And I was like, and so then I told them who you were, and hopefully you have like, you know, 5 new fans or whatever. And he's like, oh, cool. And that was that. His reactions were so dry. I don't want people to think that like he was mean or that he like shafted my time or anything, because like after that he literally was like, oh, cool, so where are you from? Like he still like could have been done signing my album. And honestly, this man's like sign was not freaking, it's not huge. Anyways, it's like not like he, I don't know, did that much to sign it. Like he wrote my name and then he just like put his signature and like that was it. Like it's not like he did that much to sign my album. So he literally was just like having a conversation with me. Like he was giving me my time to do whatever I needed and talk to him. And then after I said all the stuff that I was gonna say, he still was like, oh, so where are you from? So like, it's not like he treated me any differently than anybody else, really. It's just that the way that he talks in English is just so different. It's just different. It just is. Yeah, so after that, he's like, oh, so where are you from? And I was like, oh, I'm from Texas, United States. And he's like, oh, so like, why are you here? Did you come here for this? And I was like, no. And he's like, oh, cool, just vacationing. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, so what are you gonna do while you're in Korea? And I was like, I don't know, honestly. Like, I'm just gonna hang out. And he's like, cause like, it was the end of the conversation. He was like done with my album. So he like does this thing now and he just leans back and he's like, just explore. And I was like, yeah, dude, I'm just gonna like see what's out there. And that was it. That was our whole conversation. That was it. And after that, I went back to my seat without the dumb Squirtle anymore because I gave it to them. And I just hung out. And I like texted my friend, like took footage. While they Got7 finished the fan sign, they like talked to us for a while and it was really nice. And I swear to God, there was a moment where Mark looked out at the crowd and he like made eye contact with me and he giggled a little bit or smiled a little bit. And it's either because he was remembering that I told him that I was gonna get nasty, or he just might have just been happy because like I was clearly just sitting there like really happy, and he might have just thought like, oh, how nice. It's so nice we have international fans. Regardless, it happened. And so that was it. That was the whole fansign experience. After that, like, it ended, they said bye, and then we all like packed up our stuff, and a lot of us like went down and like sent them off in their vans, just like waved goodbye to them as they left. And that was that. That was it. That was everything. So that's it. That's the full story. This is probably another freaking hour-long video, but you know what? I hope you got what you wanted from it. I hope that whenever you go to a fan sign, I'm gonna speak that into the universe for you, that you have just as good as a time as I had. I hope that everybody smiles at you, everybody's kind to you, which they will be because they're fantastic people. I just want to say also, because if Got7 is watching this, y'all are so great. I love you so much. Like, you did such a good job of making me feel comfortable. Props to the JYP staff for making me feel comfortable at this event, because I really was so nervous and so scared and like so afraid that I was just gonna mess everything up and like say a bunch of stupid stuff. And like I told Mark that I was gonna get nasty in Korea, but like whatever. Like, it's just a funny story now. Like, it doesn't matter that much. Like, I don't know. I see these videos of like people like having good times at fan signs, and I'm like, it's so nice because like Got7 is so, like, they just make you feel so comfortable when you talk to them. To everybody else, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for making it through this video. Honestly, I barely made it through this video just telling this story just now, so like I'm really, really proud of you for making it through. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you maybe have been to a Got7 fan sign and you have any funny stories that you want to share, I'd love to hear those in the comments, because like it's an experience like no other, honestly. So let's all just have fun. Let's talk to each other. Let's get to know each other. Thank you so much for sticking out. I hope this video made you smile today, and I will see you next time. Bye.
무슨 사이를 이렇게 막 잘라주더라고요. 그래서 저 아픈데요. 그래서 이거 다 하고 안에 넣었어요. 아, 뜨거워요. 고맙어요. 이거 2만원밖에 안 했어요. 되게 샀죠? 네. 아니요. 저 좀 안 유명한 데 갔어요.